Welcome to Locked On's 2023 NBA Mock Draft Special, the most comprehensive mock draft with local and national experts providing insight and analysis you can't get anywhere else. Don't miss a single pick as we discuss where the future stars of the NBA will call home. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into the 2023 Locked On NBA Mock Draft Special, Episode 2 coming at you right now. This is the most comprehensive mock draft you'll find, and it's even bigger this year. The 6-episode series will take you through the entire first round of the NBA draft with unparalleled insight from all of the drafting teams thanks to the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Now, throughout the special, you hear from our local NBA shows, dozens of our college shows that cover your favorite teams every Monday through Friday, our NBA experts from the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast, and this year you'll get trade insights from our Locked On NBA Insider Howard Beck. Happy to be here hosting this year. I'm Kylen Mills, basketball host and analyst with the Pac-12 Network, NBC Sports Bay Area, ESPN Plus, as well as the co-host of the Locked On Warriors podcast. My co-host alongside me here on the show, the great NBA draft analyst and host of the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast, who spent his wedding night scouting Victor Wembanyama, Rafael Barlowe here with us, and college basketball expert and co-host of the Locked On College Basketball podcast, Isaac Schade. Isaac, you have yet to share a story that one-ups Rafael. I mean, you got to prove your dedication here on this show.
I've literally got nothing, Kylen. Let me go. I was born in England. How about that?
All right, we'll take it. Born in England.
My parents were missionaries, so I was born in England.
All right, fun fact about Isaac. Okay, here's my one really quick story about my dedication to basketball. In my wedding, during our entrance to our reception, my husband and I wore Chicago Bulls jerseys, and they played the Chicago Bulls warm-up song, The Running of the Bulls. If you've ever heard it. We had to smoke, we had the whole thing. Basically, we went crazy. We did a Bulls intro for our wedding. So there you go. We're all very dedicated basketball fans here on the show. Okay, so here in episode 2, we're going to break down picks 6 through 10, and to give a quick recap of what went down in the first round, Victor Wembanyama off the board, Scoot Henderson, Brandon Miller, Amen Thompson, and then Usar Thompson all went off the board in that exact order. Before we move on to pick number 6, did anything surprise you guys from that first round?
No, I'm just more surprised at how many job titles you have.
Right?
Fair enough.
Renaissance woman over here.
Right.
I love it, Kylen.
That was a lot of job titles. So anyway, no, I think the draft went in the front door. Actually, no, Cam Whitmore.
Okay.
Yeah. What was interesting to me about that, those first 5 picks, was the diversity that we had in terms of origin of where those players came from. We had an international player, a college player, a G League Ignite player, and our first 2 ever overtime elite draftees. All of that in the first 5 picks makes for a great start to a NBA draft.
Right now, the Orlando Magic are on the clock. Host Philip Rossman Reich weighing his options. Now, Orlando's a team that has 2 picks, at least at this point, both the 6th and 11th pick going to the Magic. And Orlando's a team that already has so much young talent. You're looking at Franz Wagner, center Wendell Carter, point guard Markelle Fultz, and then last year's number 1 pick in Paolo Banchero. Rafael, before we talk about who they could potentially pick, I want to know, should Orlando trade one of these away?
I would definitely look into a trade. I would do my due diligence there. I think that no matter who they select at 6 and 11, there's going to be overlapping skill sets. And right now they have quite a few guys that are point guards. And then I'm just not a fan of when you have a young team with a bunch of guys that are fighting for their second contract. I think that leads to a lot of selfish play. So I would try to consolidate the 2 picks if I'm Orlando, and maybe try to move up to 2 or 3, or see if you can get a post trade. I mean, during the middle of the draft, see if you can acquire Scoot, but that would be my choice.
Okay, interesting. So, Isaac, my question for you is, I know you guys both mentioned you felt like Cam Whitmore could have been off the board already at this point. Is he the best player available in your opinion, or is there someone else Orlando should be looking at?
The only other player, at least from the college ranks, I would add in here is Jarris Walker as a possibility. He and Whitmore are my next 2 guys I would be looking at. So if the Magic keep this pick, I would be looking at either Whitmore or Walker.
All right, really quickly, what does Whitmore bring to the table? I know we talked about him a little bit last episode, but for folks just joining us, a quick recap.
Absolutely. Well, people might be aware he had a thumb injury to start the year, and so just had a little bit of a delayed beginning to his college career. But once he got going, this young man is an elite athlete, above the rim player, can create like crazy for himself. The knock has been he doesn't necessarily create like crazy for others, but why would he when he can finish at the rim like he can? And so Cam Whitmore is a dude who's going to bring above the rim athleticism wherever he goes.
All right, well, the pick is in. Let's go to Locked On Magic host Philip Rossman-Reich with the 6th pick in this year's Locked On NBA Mock Draft Special.
This is Philip Rossman-Reich, the host of Locked On Magic, and with the 6th pick in the 2023 Locked On NBA Mock Draft, the Orlando Magic select Grady Dick. Now, there are a lot of upside plays here. When you're drafting 6, you typically don't want to go for need, but the fact of the matter is, this Magic team needs shooting. And they need shooting badly. It is the biggest thing they need. It's the biggest thing they need to support their young core of Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. And at this point, with the Magic where they are, having won 34 games last year, this Orlando Magic team needs to start positioning itself to win. So yes, you don't always want to draft solely on need, but this need is pretty big. And like last year where maybe we overthought some things come draft night, it's time to make the simple choice. The Magic need shooting, so take the best shooter in the draft. And that very well could be Grady Dick.
Ooh, some eyebrows raising over here. Interesting selection. All right, before we get your guys' takes on this, our Locked On Thunder host, Rylan Stiles, is a big fan of the Grady Dick selection. Let's check out what's going on over in the War Room.
Grady Dick is amazing. He's more than a shooter, folks.
Really?
Great feel for the game, really good rebounder. I think he can be a really good off-ball defender too. Now, you're going to have to hide him in your team construct, but he can be a good off-ball defender, high motor, always moving, can shoot off movement. I think he's going to be really good.
Cerebral, hard hat, lunch pail guy, first guy in and out of the gym, real gym rat, scrappy, sneaky athletic.
Coach's son.
There you go.
He's played a lot of high-level basketball. He played, he was a Gatorade All-American, Gatorade All-Player of the Year, played in high-level high school circuits, and then played at Kansas for Bill Self.
And
stuff.
You've won cliche bingo. You did it. You hit all the hot button terms.
Okay, well, we got some of the positives in regard to the selection and what Grady Dick brings to the table, but certainly some eyebrows raised. The 6th pick, much higher than he was projected at going. I think there certainly is some higher level talent overall with some bigger potential left on the board. Was this the right choice for Orlando, Rafael? We'll start with you.
On one hand, I get it. They definitely have a need for shooting. They were one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the league. I think they were 23rd in three-point shooting. So I get it. I think they could have got him at 11 if they really wanted to. Again, I'm sure Isaac probably agrees, since we agree on a lot of things. I would have went with Cam Whitmore, because Cam Whitmore is, I think, the better prospect. I think he has the higher upside. And he shot 40% off the catch this year. He ranked in the top 84 percentile in college basketball in shooting off the catch. So you get your shooting, athleticism. I just think you get more with Cam Whitmore.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the shooting is there. It's unquestionable. The swagger is there. Like, not only, obviously, there have been jokes made all year about his name, but Grady Dick brings it on the court. Like, he knows he's the dude and he walks around like it. Kansas this past year needed either he or Jalen Wilson to go, or they didn't go as a team, because the rest of their starters were guys that are really strong defenders, but not just walking buckets like Grady Dick is. And so at the collegiate level, he was athletic enough to do what he needed to do, but it's very average level NBA athleticism, in my opinion. Rafael, you can tell me if I'm wrong on that. Here's what's missed about Grady Dick is he has great positional size. We're going to talk about Jarris Walker. I'm sure he's coming off the board soon here. Grady Dick is only a quarter inch shorter than Jarris Walker. And so those kind of things can get missed. As was said in the War Room, you're going to have to find ways to kind of hide him defensively, because if I'm an opposing coach, top of my scouting report, all right, who's Grady Dick guarding? Cool, give him the ball, let's go.
Yeah, I mean, you can make a case and say he is the best shooter in the class. And what's interesting about the numbers with Grady Dick, when you think of him, you don't think of a guy that scores mostly out of like pick and roll and ball screens. But when he was putting ball screens, he ranked in the top 96 percentile in the country, shot about 42% as the pick and roll ball handler. So I thought Kansas did a good job of kind of setting the screen and allowed him to pull up and elevate over the top. Again, I get why Orlando selected him at number 6 I get why they went after shooting, but I still think you could have got him at 11.
And even if you couldn't get him at 11, you've got 6 and 11. Package those like you talked about earlier, Rafael, and move to like 9 or 10 if you need to, if you're worried about somebody else grabbing him.
Yep.
Okay, so my hot button question for you guys. Isaac, we'll start with you. Orlando did need a shooter desperately. Was Grady Dick the best shooter in the college game this year?
As Rafael just said, I think it's an arguable point that you could say that best pure shooter. He's got a nice high release, all of that. For me, if I'm looking at it, I don't think Jordan Hawkins is quite as elite a shooter as Grady Dick, but he brings more in other areas that for me would tick him up above Grady Dick. So I would probably give that to Hawkins.
I can make a case for Hawkins because if you look at the percentages, it's going to say that Grady Dick is the better shooter, but the degree of difficulty
good point
goes to Jordan Hawkins. I mean, he's flying off screens. And I mean, there's only a few guys that I can think of that have the ability to fly off screens, catch, shoot, let it fly. I mean, not saying he's going to be as good a shooter as Clay and Steph and JJ Redick and Kyle Korver, but he's that type of movement shooter, which I think is really valuable. And I think that you could have got him at 11 and you still addressed your needs.
100%.
So we'll see how this turns out.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, interesting insights. For some more insights on Grady Dick, let's head over to our Locked On Jayhawks host, Derek Johnson.
Hey, it's Derek Johnson with Locked On Jayhawks with your NBA Draft Player Spotlight of Grady Dick. Grady had a phenomenal freshman season at Kansas, one of the best that we've seen from a one-and-done under Bill Self. You're throwing up the likes of Josh Jackson and Andrew Wiggins and Joel Embiid with the production that he was able to put up. He was the best shooter on the team, shot 40% from three, over 14 points, 5 rebounds, second team All Big 12 selection. And he had to deal with some ups and downs, going through some times where defenses or opposing offenses targeted him on the defensive end of the ball. But he always wanted to. He tried hard on that end, would end up with good steal numbers. We saw times where teams face guarded him, had to adjust through that throughout the season. Good news in the NBA, there will be a little bit more spacing for him, and he is a knockdown shooter. Can shoot off movement, has a very high release. Again, shot 40%, very repeatable release. Wherever he's going, they know they are getting one of the best shooters, if not the best shooter in the draft, but there's potential for more because he's a 6'8" wing who's athletic, who tries hard on defense, good offensive rebounder, made some good moments there, and really just wants to improve and get better in his overall game, wherever that ends up being for Grady.
Okay, interesting. Any additional reactions to some of that insight?
All facts.
Facts. Facts.
Here's what I do love. With Grady Dick, you're getting a guy who's putting the time in. Like, while the ceiling might not be as high as some others, he does have a high floor, in my opinion, and I like that, what he brings offensively in that way.
More facts. For some more facts, we're going to go to Richard Stamen to the Locked On NBA Big Board.
With the 6th pick in the NBA draft, the Orlando Magic selected Grady Dick out of Kansas. He's a shooter. He can absolutely shoot the lights out. He's incredibly intelligent on the floor, but there are lots of risks with this pick. I actually think there were a few guys I think that the Magic could have taken instead and gotten down at 11. Grady Dick while he is a great shooter, he still has some shortcomings. He's a good athlete, but he doesn't create much. On ball, he's limited defensively. But the good news for them is, the Magic really needed spot-up shooters. That's arguably their very biggest need. It's a role over position need. And at 6'7", 6'8", roughly, the combine measurement was a little bit loose since they measure without shoes. He still fills a need. The issue for him is just how much can he hold his own defensively while being intelligent on the defensive end. That's going to be very telling for him. I think this is an okay pick. There are better players on the board.
Just an okay pick. Before we move along, what would you guys grade this pick for the Orlando Magic? Those faces tell the whole story right there. If you're not watching and you're listening, very, very mixed reactions here.
The listeners can't see my facial expression.
Because
I'm trying to describe it. It's not good. It's not pretty.
Like pick fit grade versus choice grade overall. Like pick fit because of the need of spot up shooters, maybe B minus. But in terms of like just outside of context pick, C.
C. Okay.
I'll give them a C plus because they did feel a need, a glaring need. But I mean, like I said before, like Richard said, probably could have got him at 11 or maybe even a Jordan Hawkins. So I'll give them a C plus because they did help the team get better.
Okay, now just to be clear, when I said your face wasn't pretty, Rafael, I didn't mean it's not pretty to look at. Just your reaction to this pick wasn't pretty, okay? So if you're listening, Rafael, very, very pretty face overall. Just not super impressed with this Orlando Magic pick at number 6.
Just be worried about my wife. Just be worried about my wife. That's all. She maybe take offense to that.
Okay. Oh, no, your wife is the GOAT. She is the one who was out scouting Wembanyama on her wedding night. We do not want to make her angry. Please beg for her forgiveness for me.
Gotcha. It'll happen.
All right, the number 6 pick in the books. Before we move along to number 7, will it be Cam Whitmore? He's a player these two have been really high on. Surprised he hasn't gone quite yet. We'll find out. Is he going to be next? The Locked On NBA Mock Draft Special is brought to you by Bird Dogs. If you're looking for some of the most comfortable, stylish shorts you can find, you gotta go check out Bird Dogs. Our producer Ross was just telling me these are some of his favorite shorts because they've got that khaki style, but they're also designed to fit a little bit slimmer and give your legs that truly sculpted look. They also are anti-sweat, anti-stink, so you'll be comfortable and also smell pretty good all day long. Go to birddogs.com// Locked On NBA and enter promo code LOCKEDONNBA for a free Yeti style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA for a free Yeti style tumbler. Those are awesome as well. Almost as awesome as the clothes. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you that. Continuing our Locked On Mock Draft NBA special, the Indiana Pacers have picked number 7. Very excited to see which direction this goes. Now, Indiana was the 7th worst rebounding team in the NBA. They were last in defensive rebounding this season. Rafael, who do they pick to address some of those issues?
I think Jarris Walker could help address those needs. He'd be a good rebounder, defender, an additional playmaker, a guy that can knock down open shots. But I still think I would go with Cam Whitmore. That's just who I go with. Maybe I'm just going to campaign for Cam until he's off the board.
Fair enough. Is that your pick as well, Isaac? Would you say Whitmore? Y'all are both just riding this Whitmore train, man.
Well, listen, because of the rebounding, here's where I'll throw in a new wrinkle. Let's go with some Taylor Hendricks love, a guy that really does some nice things defensively, has that ability to knock down shots just like these other guys we're talking about. Let's get his name in here for the first time as a potential if we really need some rebounding.
Okay, so 3 big names that pop into mind right now. Jarris Walker, Cam Whitmore, Taylor Hendricks. Isaac, like what differentiates those 3 or how would you rank them?
With Jarris Walker, it's all about defense. Like if I'm not going to call him Anthony Davis. Hear me not saying that in any way. But when Anthony Davis was coming out, his offensive game was very much a work in progress. That's kind of where Jarris Walker is. There's a lot there that suggests he's going to be able to continue to grow offensively. But you go get him because of his defensive capability already in his NBA-ready body. In terms of Whitmore, we've already laid that out. It's the athleticism. It's what he can do to create and finish. With Hendricks, it's 3 and D from the stretch 4 position. And so really we're getting into that range a little bit where fit-wise, as the Pacers brass, you look at that and you go with any of those dudes who you think can help you best at this spot.
All right, well, let's see what the pick is. It looks like our pick is in. Let's go to Locked On host Tony East with the selection for the Indiana Pacers.
Tony East here with Locked On Pacers, and with the 7th pick in the Locked On mock draft, the Pacers will select Jarris Walker from Houston. kind of exactly what the Pacers need. A couple forwards in this range who make sense for the blue and gold, who would like to improve defensively and who need forward depth desperately. Guess what? Jarace Walker helps with both of those things, coming from a Houston program that emphasizes that defensive prowess. He can do all sorts of those things, can switch on to multiple different positions. He talked about being good at that. After the draft combine, he averaged 6.8 rebounds, 11.2 points per game. His passing was impressive at times with the Cougars. Can finish plays, was a decent enough shooter. The plug-and-play ability he has to be able to defend, run in the open floor, grab the rebound, defend multiple positions is exactly what the Pacers need and could grow into one of those kind of Swiss Army knife forwards in the NBA. The Pacers will take it, and he'll fit right in with what they're hoping to accomplish in the next couple of years. Pacers happy with Jarace Walker at number 7.
Okay, interesting. Heard a lot of talk about defense. Jarace Walker is certainly a versatile defender. Also, one thing to note about the Pacers, they were top 5 in the NBA in switching on ball screens this season. How do you think Walker's skill set could fit into that specific, defensive mindset this team has, Rafael?
I like it. He definitely helps on the defensive end. I think that he is kind of unfairly labeled as just this defensive presence. He has a lot more to his game on the offensive end. One of the things I like about Walker, and I had to watch his high school film to see, but he is a very, very good passer and playmaker. That's right. Kind of settled into a role in Houston. But here's something and I don't want to go on a tangent here, but here's something I like about Walker.
Go on a tangent. We love tangents.
Houston does not have one-and-done players.
That's right.
They do not have a history of one-and-done players. When Jarace Walker signed up to go to the University of Houston, he signed up to be coached hard. He signed up to play a role that probably wasn't going to showcase everything that he has. And he just played like great team defense. He was a good defender. So I think that from like a standpoint of a general manager or whatever, you feel like we got a guy that showed that he could play in a system, play winning ball, and he's coachable. He's been coached hard. He was forced to defend, and now we can actually allow him to kind of spread his wings on the offensive end. And just a few stats about Jarace Walker that I like. For a big, he had 12 more assists and turnovers. There are some guards in this draft class, point guards, that did not have the same assist to turnover ratio. He shot 73% on cuts to the rim, which is great for a guy like Tyrese Halliburton to find. And he shot 66% at the rim, so he's a good finisher. But here's the key. He shot 41% on catch and shoot jumpers. If the shot ends up falling, you could end up with this Bam Adebayo, Draymond Green type connective defensive presence that can make plays for others. I like the pick. I still like Cam Whitmore, but I would still give the Pacers an A for this pick because he feels the need.
Interesting. And it's interesting you brought up a player like Draymond Green. Now, Isaac, do you see Jarace Walker having potential to make buckets for himself as well? Do you see his offensive role, if he blossoms in the A, being more of a playmaker or facilitator?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I would call him Draymond Green without the headache of the Draymond Green of it all. Because one of my favorite things about Jarace Walker is he's just a good, fun young man. Like, go watch an interview with him. He's just measured. He thinks through what he's saying, but he's jovial. He enjoys being around. I love everything Rafael said about what choice he made of where to go to school, right? Like, he's not just surrounding himself with a bunch of his buddies from AAU and like, hey, let's go to Duke or Kentucky and do this thing. He surrounded himself with veteran college basketball players, Marcus Sasser, Tremont Mark, Jamal Shea, like all these guys who he could learn under along with Kelvin Sampson. And it's great. What I love that he can do, kind of going back to your question there, Kylen, is even though he might be a little undersized positionally, he is silly long. Just like his wingspan measurement at the draft combine was 7'2.5", yep. While his height measurement was 6'6.5". Obviously, as Rafael said earlier, that's Shoeless Joe Jackson version, but still, like those measurements is insane. So if you want to put a bigger, slow-footed defender on me, cool, see ya, gone. If you want to put a smaller, evenly sized guy on me, cool, let's go play some bully ball in the paint. I'd like to see more of that. He does fade away a little bit too much for me, just relying on that. I'd like to see Jarace take guys down in the paint and say, look, I'm 250, let's go. Because again, that body is NBA ready.
Interesting. Seems like a player with a lot of upside. Now, to find out more about forward Jarace Walker, let's check in with our Locked On Cougs host, Parker Ainsworth.
The first Houston Cougar is off the board. Jarace Walker is officially an NBA basketball player. I'm the host of Locked On Cougs, Parker Ainsworth, and I'm telling you, you've got a surefire NBA basketball player at 6'6.5" without his shoes on, 249 pounds, 7'2.5" wingspan, a 38-inch vertical shot, 35% from three. This guy is a sure thing. I love that he's a gamer. Go back and watch those big matchups with the Virginias, the Auburns, the Miamis. He does everything for the Houston Cougars in those games. Virginia, really, that game highlights what he does as a creator as well against UCF. He covered Taylor Hendricks against Alabama. He's been chunks of the game holding Brandon Miller to 0 field goals. Big time prospect, big time player. We're thinking Paul Millsap, Sean Marion, maybe a little bit bouncier Julius Randle. A lot of things to be hopeful for about this. Jared's going to be a great pro for a long time. Big, strong, sturdy, and man, he can fill it up if you let him. Go Cougs, go Jarace. Big time basketball player.
Love it. Get a little go Cougs there at the end. Can you guys believe Cam Whitmore's still on the board? I mean, 2 picks now, come and gone.
I can't believe it, but I will say this. I think that going to whether it was Indiana or Washington is up next, I think that is a better fit for him, like as far as playing time right away, than Orlando. I mean, Orlando has Banchero and Wagner, guys that play the same position if Jonathan Isaac is healthy. So I do think
no, that will never happen, Rafael.
Yeah,
nice
he's
try.
played like 3 games since like COVID. I mean, but I do think sliding for him might actually help him land in a better spot.
Okay, interesting. Do you share the same sentiments, Isaac?
Yeah, I mean, and when we're talking sliding, we're still talking the 8th overall pick in the 2023 NBA draft. And so nice little payday for Cam wherever he goes. You got to expect it's going to be the next couple picks here.
Okay, well, before we move along to that 8th pick, let's check in with Lief Thulin of the Locked On NBA Big Board.
Jarace Walker at number 7 to the Pacers is a phenomenal pick. Jarace Walker is a player who put up pedestrian stats on a loaded team. 11 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, couple stocks to his name. A budding passer, someone who shot 35% from 3 as an off-ball player with tremendous defensive upside and floor. What is Jarace Walker? I spoke to an executive at the Combine, and he said Jarace Walker, if he went to Ole Miss or South Carolina, likening him to G.G. Jackson or Brandon Miller, some freshman in the SEC who exceeded expectations, I think he would score 18 and 9 is what he told me about Jarace Walker, and will be a surefire number 5 pick. So he's got more at his disposal, more in the tool belt than he showed at Houston, where he played a role and played it in a stellar way. Jarace Walker's a big-bodied wing who can defend and will feed off of Tyrese Halliburton and Benedict Mathurin and the players that are in place already with the Pacers. I really like this fit, and I think this is a very likely landing spot for Jarace Walker.
All right, moving along to pick number 6, Grady Dick and Jarace Walker off the board at 6 and 7. Now the Washington Wizards are on the clock. The Wizards are a team in search of an identity. They were 22nd in the league in offense, 21st in defense. They finished 12th in the Eastern Conference. Their GM was just let go at the end of the season. I'm not even going to pretend and say what direction do they go with this pick, but I'm just going to say, Rafael, how would Cam Whitmore help this group if they were to choose him?
I mean, the Wizards need a lot of help as is. But with Kuzma and Porzingis, unless they play Cam at the 3, which, more than likely, I don't know. I would, if I'm the Wizards, sorry, Cam. I think I may go point guard here because they had probably the worst starting point guard rotation in the NBA. They had good game managers, but there was their point guards would, and it's no knock on DeLon Wright and Monte Morris, but the opposing teams aren't game planning to stop DeLon Wright and Monte Morris. So I think upgrading the point guard position is the biggest need, while I think Cam Whitmore is the best player available. So it'll be interesting to see what the Wizards do here.
Who would you do if you were doing that, Barlowe? Who would you do? Would you go Anthony Black, Cason Wallace? What are you looking at?
I'm going with Cason Wallace. I believe in the Kentucky bump. I'm not a big Kentucky fan, but I believe in their guys succeed in the NBA. I mean, teams can't keep making the mistake of Tyrese Maxey going to 18 or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander falling to the back end of the lottery, Tyler Hero in the back end of the lottery, Jamal Murray, all of those guys will go higher in a redraft. And so eventually you have to say, you know what, I'm just going to take a Kentucky guard because I know they're going to be better than what they showed in college.
I think you really missed it there. You should have gone with Gilbert Arenas.
He went to Arizona.
Now, to your point, though, about needing a point guard, you look at Bradley Beal, he really needs a higher level playmaker, I think, than Monty Morris in the backcourt. You look at the Wizards when they've made it to the playoffs, he was alongside John Wall, even that one season with Russell Westbrook. If they don't go with a point guard, what direction does this organization go from here?
You might have to play Beal at point guard. That's the only thing I can think of. It's a tough choice. It's a new front office there, but I would go to point guard, honestly. But it depends. If they don't feel like they can bring Kuzma back or the price tag gets too high, then Cam Whitmore would be the choice.
Okay, Isaac, what do you think? Best player available or, the position you really need right now, which is point guard?
Yeah, I was having fun with Gilbert Arenas and the Wizards there, but I love the Cason Wallace call because everything he brings, it's going to be like Jarace Walker, where everyone's going to talk about his defense, but there's so much more that Cason Wallace is able to do. When Coach Cal finally realized what he had in Cason Wallace and inserted him into the starting lineup over Xavier Wheeler, Kentucky took off. Why not plug and play for the Wizards as well?
Yeah. All right, well, the 8th pick is in. Let's find out. Our Locked On Wizards host, Brandon Scott, has his selection.
What's good, everybody? It's your boy Brandon Scott again with Locked On Wizards. And with the 8th pick in the 2023 Locked On NBA mock draft, the Washington Wizards select Cam Whitmore, 6'7", out of Villanova. Why do we want Cam Whitmore? For many reasons. He can finish at the basket. He can cut on the offense and defensive end. He is versatile. He's a true 3-and-D wing who can shoot from the high percentage from behind the arc and defend at a high level. And he's got that dog in him, which we desperately need in DC for the Wizards. Now, Dal, how does he slide into the lineup in DC? Well, if they indeed re-sign Kyle Kuzma and KP, he can slide right into the 3 at the wing, putting Kyle Kuzma at the 4 and KP at the 5, and I think he'd be very successful in Washington, D.C., and really aid in this retool or rebuild or really drive to make this a playoff team. But I think he can fit in right well in D.C. So appreciate y'all, and peace.
All right, Rafael, they didn't go the point guard direction. What is your reaction to that pick?
I'm not mad at it. I think they got the best player available. I do have some concerns about a Kuzma line defensively as far as defending physical centers or physical front court players, but it's the NBA. It's not a whole lot of that going on anyway, but I can't be mad at the pick. They got the best player available.
Same. Your reaction, Isaac?
Man, listen, you're not going to be mad about getting an uber athlete that in terms of players measured at the NBA draft combine, had a 40.5-inch max vert, 4th highest among everyone tested, only one of 4 players that was 40 inches or higher. I don't know how many different ways I can say it. This guy can do what you need him to do. I think a lot of people, again, we talked about it on the last show. I think there's a little bit of a bump down on Cam because Villanova was not Villanova last year. Villanova didn't have Jay Wright last year. Villanova didn't have Justin Moore last year. Villanova didn't have Cam Whitmore to start the year last year. And I legitimately think had all of those aligned normally, he would have been in that conversation for 4th or 5th pick in this draft, right behind Wemby and Miller and Scoot, along with the Thompson twins. So, listen, you go get the guy that is, in our opinion, the next available best on the board. Can't hate it.
Yeah, and I mentioned with Jarace Walker about a guy that chose to go to a school that does not produce one-and-dones. Cam Whitmore is the first Villanova one-and-done since Tim Thomas, and that was in 97. I'm in my mid-40s. I was in high school when the last time Villanova had a one-and-done.
It's pretty crazy. Well, now they've got a player with some real star potential in Cam Whitmore. And to learn more about him, let's go on over to Locked On College Basketball co-host Isaac's counterpart, Andy Patton.
Well, the Villanova Wildcats may not have exceeded expectations last year, but star freshman Cam Whitmore was everything advertised and more in a tremendous one-and-done season for Villanova. The 6'7" forward averaged 12.5 points and 5.3 rebounds per game, showcasing a variety of different ways to score the basketball. He's long, he's athletic, he's going to be able to score at every single way in the NBA, and he's got the ability to be an impactful defensive player as well. There is very little not to like about Cam Whitmore. He hasn't showed a ton of playmaking and distributing ability, but if you're drafting him to be somebody who passes the ball, you probably have the wrong guy. Whitmore is the kind of player NBA scouts have long dreamt about in just about any era of basketball, and he's going to be a very, very good one who makes an NBA general manager quite happy going forward.
All right, well, there we have it. Isaac, are you on the same page with your co-host or not?
Of course, Andy said it exactly right. You're not drafting Cam Whitmore to go distribute the ball. If you wanted that, you'd go get Anthony Black or Cason Wallace or somebody who does that. Let the man score, let him get to the rim, kick out when needed, when guys crash on him. But no, Andy's right on.
So my question is, who's running this Washington offense next season?
Rafael said it.
I guess they got to see if they can trade into, I don't know, Bradley Beal.
Beal, that's what I'm saying. You said it, man. Let him go.
Bradley Beal. I don't know, maybe they figured out a way to turn Johnny Davis into a point guard.
Well, certainly it'll be interesting in Washington. But first, for more on Cam Whitmore, let's check in with Richard Stamen of the Locked On NBA Big Board.
Washington Wizards selected Cam Whitmore out of Villanova. What was once projected to be a one-and-done top 5 prospect, Cam Whitmore fell off a little bit with just some inconsistencies across shooting, defending, and mostly passing. The passing concerns are a little bit more obvious than the other two. The free throw percentage doesn't pop for Cam Whitmore, but the jump shooting over contest is too hard to deny. He can finish at the rim. He's a 3-level scorer. If you were to draw up a wing with star upside, Cam Whitmore fits a lot of the bills. You know, he can score at all 3 levels. He can theoretically, he's a good athlete. He can get to the rim with ease. He can create a little bit on his own, especially through bully ball. The defensive upside is there while there is stuff to iron out. The only thing missing from that is he's got to become a better playmaker. He was big in the FIBA U18s with the United States. If he can build on that success, he will be an absolute star for Washington.
All right, up next on the clock, the Utah Jazz with the 9th overall pick. Wait a second. Are you guys hearing that siren? Cue the siren. I think we have some breaking news. There are some discussions happening about a possible trade going on in the war room. Let's head over to see what exactly is going on.
David, I know you're not in love with this draft. And I know that your team is in a bit of the conundrum next year, given the fact that, are you good enough to go to the playoffs? What are you going to do with this pick next year? And the Thunder own it, top 10 protected, though. But what if you're better than expected again next year and that falls out of the top 10? So what if I just gave you your pick back plus pick 12 for pick 9? I just give it back to you. You control it again. Do whatever you want with it. And I give you pick 12.
So wait a second. I get the 12th pick of the draft.
And your pick back next year.
Deal.
Well, that'll be a hot pick.
Well, the Mills bomb has been dropped. Okay, for the record, I didn't make that up. Our producer, Ross Jackson, made it up. Full credit goes to him. Very clever. Love it. Oklahoma City Thunder now on the clock, up next at number 9. Who will they select? We'll find out in just a moment. This Locked On NBA mock draft special is presented by Game Time. Just the other day, my mom was in town visiting from Chicago. I live here in the Bay Area. We were trying to find tickets to the Cubs-Giants games. We found great deals on the Game Time app. Now, some things you can do. You can find flash deals for last-minute tickets. They're easy to find and buy tickets for any kind of event going on in your area. They show you images of the seat views, and it's the lowest price guaranteed. Event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and so much more. Finding tickets last minute doesn't have to be stressful. Now, stag the tickets without the stress at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code at LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Continuing now, our Locked On mock draft special. The OKC Thunder now have the 9th overall pick in our draft. The Thunder are a team that are well on their way to being a playoff contender. They had the 5th best offense in the NBA this season. Rafael, what direction do the Thunder go with this pick?
I think the Thunder have the luxury of just taking whoever they want, best player available. They don't necessarily have a need for fit. Although I'm thinking maybe down the line, they're going to have to face Jokic in a playoff series. So they may want to need some beef, but there's nobody available at this range. But they're getting a rookie in Chet next year. And I mean, they're good at the point guard. They're good at, with Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams. I just think they can gamble on the highest upside and someone that they don't necessarily need to come in and contribute right away. I may gamble on like a Bilal Coulibaly or somebody like that.
Interesting. Isaac, who is the best available talent on the board right now in your eyes? You're already laughing. If you can't see him, he's laughing. Explain why, sir.
I'm laughing because Rafael was talking about needing beef, and then like 2 players later said Chet Holmgren coming back, and I'm picturing fat Chet Holmgren, and it's the most hilarious thing I've ever seen in my life.
Just send him to New Orleans for a summer. He'll be all right.
Yeah, that's right. Getting some beignets. Let's go. No, I think this is where I would go Taylor Hendricks. I mean, what he brings on both sides of the ball, the shot making ability from outside, the positional size, his ability to just wreak havoc defensively and to protect the rim. I think that makes sense for the Thunder.
Okay, my only question about Taylor Hendricks is, a player coming out of a mid-major like that, can his game translate? Are there any concerns when you look at what team he was on?
Well, do you have any concerns with Jarace Walker? Because they're coming out of the same conference, right? Like, I mean, that's the conversation we're having here. Because what I would say about Taylor Hendricks is if this was next year and UCF was already in the Big 12, like they'll be next year, it just wouldn't even be a conversation. No, so he transcends those kind of conversations. I'm not worried about it. And even if we've seen players in recent memory, Santa Clara did it last year. They're going to do it again this year, who have players that come in and then not only do that for the Thunder themselves, by the way, I should add. And so I have no concerns there at all.
Yeah, I mean, I immediately was thinking of Jalen Williams out of Santa Clara when we were talking about this. But I mean, it's a conversation that, still is had around the league in terms of some of these players coming from, the mid-major programs. But UCF won't be in that category for long. All right.
Can I add something real fast?
Yeah, add it.
I mean, are we just done with geography and conferences now? Like, why do we have a team from Florida in the Big 12, and then we got Creighton in the Big East, and now we have UCLA or is it UCLA and USC going to the Big Ten?
Both of them going to the Big Ten. Well, here, listen, Rafael. People can't see me, but it's all about the money. Yeah, I mean, that's it. Is everyone's trying to build these super conferences now so that they can survive. The Big Ten and the SEC are light years ahead of everyone else, along with the new media deals they're both getting. So the Pac-12, Kylen knows this, the Pac-12 and the ACC and the Big 12 are trying to figure out how to survive. And you do that by bringing in a Houston in that media market. You do it by bringing in UCF and the Orlando media market. That's where it's at.
So you have, in the Big 12, you got Colorado.
No.
Colorado's in the Pac-12.
Yeah, they moved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although there are conversations about them coming back to the Big 12.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Well, no, like right now, if you look at USC and UCLA, like those teams are going to be flying to Penn, like on a regular basis. When you look at some of the Big 10 schools, like they're in East Coast time zones, like you're literally going across the country. It's going to be kind of crazy, to figure out all the logistics there. It honestly sounds like a nightmare. I want no part of it. But my question, okay, before we move on to the pick, but for you, Isaac, is this eventually going to be a Big 10 and SEC are the only two power conferences that take over everything? Do you see that happening?
I don't guarantee it, but I see a world where that's a very real thing, where we essentially have, let's call it an Eastern Conference and Western Conference, an AFC and an NFC, a National League and American League. And then, maybe 16 teams each, very similar to our professional leagues. But that's where it's going. I would not be surprised if pretty soon here, the players, because of name, image, and likeness stuff for people who haven't been diving into college, players can benefit off of their name, image, and likeness now. And so that's like, are we going to start seeing collective bargaining agreement? Like all these kind of things are coming to college because of this. And it's all this one big ball of wax. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see that happen. In fact, the ACC's just had some more interesting conversations in their spring meetings. The Big 12 did that like the last week of May. And so we're going to see all of this, but this is the time of year where a lot of moves happen. USC, UCLA, that came out about this time last year. So keep your eyes peeled, folks.
Can't wait to watch a UCLA Rutgers game
on a Tuesday night in January. Yeah,
exactly. It's going to be fascinating to see. We're going to have to do a whole separate special about that whole situation because it's very interesting, and I feel like a lot of changes are coming down the pipe, as you mentioned, Isaac, just for collegiate athletics in the big picture. But back to our mock draft special. Our 9th pick is in. Here is Ryan Stiles with a pick for the Oklahoma City Thunder.
The Oklahoma City Thunder elect to trade pick number 12 and the 2024 Utah Jazz pick back to Utah in order to get back pick number 9. The Thunder are comfortable with this trade. They move up in the draft to get a player that seamlessly fits in Oklahoma City, and they only give up one of their 4 2024 first-round picks. Utah gets more flexibility out of the deal, and the Oklahoma City Thunder get Taylor Hendricks, who is an awesome player that complements Chet Holmgren extremely well at that power forward position. At 6'8", Hendricks shot nearly 40% from beyond the arc. He's an excellent on-ball defender with positional versatility that the Thunder covet, that floor spacing on offense, that help side rim protection on defense. It would be unfair for the Thunder to get a talent like Taylor Hendricks in this draft class to pair with Chet Holmgren, SGA, Jalen Williams, Josh Giddey, and the core continues to grow. The Thunder would be a force to be reckoned with.
Interesting. So you just heard Rylan mentioning a possible partnership between Taylor Hendricks and Chet Holmgren. However, that is 2 very, very young players in your front court. How do you see those 2 skill sets shaping out in the NBA, Rafael?
Well, I think the person that benefits most is Gilgeous-Alexander. If Hendricks and Chet are knocking down shots, he's already a great finisher. I mean, he's going to be able to just waltz into the lane because who do you help off of if both of those guys are shooting? I mean, I know Hendricks was at 39% from 3. I know Chet shot a high percentage from 3 last year. Of course, we haven't seen them in the NBA, but if they're knocking down open shots and protecting the rim, Shea benefits defensively. If he gets beat, he's got some rim protection behind him, and on offense, he has floor spacing. So I like the pick.
All right, Isaac, what's your insight?
Well, to finish off what Rafael said, to put the numbers on it, Chet at Gonzaga was shooting 39% from 3 on 3.3 attempts per game. So, I mean, he was doing it with Taylor doing it. Both of these guys, Hendricks blocked 1.7 shots per game last year. Chet was just silly at Gonzaga. And so their ability on offense to step out, clear the Red Sea for Shea to come down through it. But then on the other side, I'm not trying to come in the paint against either of those guys. And so I think the way they would complement each other is phenomenal there. And again, Taylor Hendricks, maybe undervalued because of where he went. Don't miss that. Switchable. I think he's going to be switchable 2 through 4 defensively. I couldn't see him going all the way to a true center or a true guard, but can do what he needs to do offensively. I'd like to see him grow in his handle a little bit to where he could do a little bit of playmaking, a little bit of driving, maybe allow SGA to go off the ball a little bit there. So it could be really interesting, but a true modern day NBA stretch for sure.
It's really scary because, as we mentioned before the pick was announced, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the fifth best offense in the NBA this season, that was without Chet Holmgren on the floor. Now you add in Taylor Hendricks, 2 floor spacers. How high do you see the ceiling being for this Thunder offense?
I mean, not much higher you can go then.
That's what I'm saying. They're already the 5th highest scoring, for goodness sakes.
4th.
Was it 4th?
No, I don't know.
Stop it.
I'll say this. Both of those dudes, they got to start eating. Go get some Oklahoma City barbecue because Chet, I feel like I could just poke him like that and his bones would break like a piece of peanut brittle or something. I don't know. But and same for Hendricks. He needs to put some weight on too. So that is one concern I would have in our mock draft world.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they start together, their combined front court may weigh like a little less than 400 pounds.
It's crazy to think about. All right, for more on Hendricks, let's check in with our Locked On College basketball host, Andy Patton.
Taylor Hendricks was one of the biggest risers in all of college basketball last season, massively exceeding expectations in his lone season at Central Florida in the American Conference. I'm Andy Patton, the host of the Locked On College Basketball podcast. Hendricks averaged 15 and 7 last year as a 6'9" combo forward who showcased the elite outside shooting ability that you love to see from that kind of player. He also has a lot of defensive versatility and is able to guard multiple different positions. There are some questions about his ability to self-create. Can he go get his own shot? If he has that ability, the aggressiveness to go get himself a bucket, that could lead him to being one of the biggest steals in this entire NBA draft class. Even if not, though, he's still a player who projects to have the floor of a very solid 3-and-D wing. This is a player who should succeed very much so in the modern NBA.
Okay. Isaac has left the building. Looks like Isaac Schade is out. Isaac, where you at? You want to come back now, please?
Well, Andy said he was the
Andy
host.
have me back?
Andy said he was the host. He didn't say co-host. He said it was his show.
I guess I'm done. Y'all, good luck rest of the way.
All right. Well, man down here in our Locked On NBA mock
around.
draft special. Yikes.
Well, you know, the way they're firing NBA coaches, you never know. Guys can get fired mid-show.
But I'll take a job. Let's go.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. There should be some openings, Isaac. Well, let's just get you in. Forget college. We'll get you into the NBA game, right?
I'm in. I'm all in. I'll be the Warriors' new GM. That sounds better.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Come on over to the West Coast.
Love it.
We'll have you. We'll love you.
Got some tough decisions to make this summer.
Yeah, exactly. You'd have your hands full. That's for sure.
I'm definitive. Let's go get rid of Steph. He's terrible.
Whoa. Now, Isaac, I do not want to let you get hurt or attacked by Warriors Twitter as a part of this special. So we're going to cut you off right there. Moving along in our Locked On NBA mock draft special. My one thing I wanted to ask about in terms of Hendricks, could he be the biggest steal of the draft? That was something that your counterpart, Andy, had mentioned. Do you think that is realistic? Rafael and Isaac, both of you, what do you think on this?
I'm just laughing at the word biggest because I'm thinking of Chet
the beefiness
and
that we've been talking about,
like the thin towers. So he could be. I mean, I think he feels. Every team needs shooting, but front court shooting and rim protection. I mean, that's such a valuable asset. So I wouldn't say he's the biggest steal, but I think that that's a great pick.
Yeah, I've got to go back to Cam Whitmore being picked several picks later than we thought he was. I think Cam could be a big steal. There's several players still on the board that if they slide much more than they have right now could enter that conversation. But Hendricks is definitely in the conversation.
All right, for more on this pick, let's go to Lief Thulin of the Locked On NBA Big Board.
Taylor Hendricks at 9 to the Oklahoma City Thunder after a trade with the Utah Jazz. Hendricks is a guy who is unheralded coming into the year, but came away with a top 10 grade by just about anyone. Hendricks has a very high floor as a guy who shot 40% from three as a freshman and is a defensive anchor who can block shots as a secondary rim protector and slides his feet beautifully. He fits next to the Thunder's young core of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Josh Giddey, Jalen Williams from Santa Clara, Chet Holmgren, who's yet to return, and even Jalen Williams from Arkansas. He could play the 4 right away. He can also play bench minutes. I think this is a really interesting pick for the Thunder, and I understand why they'd move up to make this pick. Someone who can space the floor around their stars who prefer to drive, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Josh Giddey, who have playmaking acumen. I think Hendricks is a guy who has high floor, a little bit limited ceiling, but would fit very nicely with this team and raise their ceiling as they're already looking to be a playoff team in what seems like just a blink of the eye. The Thunder have really accelerated their timeline, and Taylor Hendricks should help to do so as well.
Rafael, I feel like I cut you off tossing to that. Was there anything else that you wanted to add about that Thunder pick?
No, I think it makes a lot of sense. Like I said, I mean, with the floor spacing and the rim protection that you get there, it really benefits, and those two guys complement their all NBA player in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So I like the pick.
All right, moving along to the 10th pick in our Locked On NBA mock draft special. The Dallas Mavericks now weighing their options. The Mavs had a fairly successful mini tank job keeping the 10th pick this season. Now, this could be pretty interesting because some of the bigs you guys both were really high on are now off the board. So who is the next best available, Isaac?
I'm getting into Jordan Hawkins territory. I mean, just coming off a national championship, we've talked about earlier that he is arguably, if not the best shooter in the draft, with making those shots off of every type of play imaginable. You've still got Anthony Black, you've got Cason Wallace, but then we start getting into the territory of like Kobe Buffkin, or if you do need or are thinking about a big, there you could have somebody like Derek Lively from Duke, who is just scary to go against in the lane. And so there's some different possible directions here for the Mavs, and I'm very curious to see what happens.
I mean, Rafael, do you feel like there's a position they should be looking at specifically, or is this just a best available situation?
Definitely. This is the easiest choice for me other than Wembanyama. I'm going with Derek Lively. It may seem controversial to some, but the Mavs, I mean, we know that they need help on defense. They need a rim protector. And, some people are concerned, well, why would you take a guy to average 3 points per game in the top 10? But Lively is, he's your vertical lob threat. He's your rim runner. And with a guy like Luka Doncic, that's going to get him easy looks. All he has to do is set screens, run the floor, jump up to the moon, catch, block shots. I think he could be this Luka Doncic era Dallas Mavericks version of Tyson Chandler. To me, this is a no-brainer. He fills so many of the Mavs' needs, and he can shoot the ball. Like he made 14 threes in a row at his pro day. If he develops into a pick-and-pop threat, he just helps the Mavs immediately.
So, Isaac, is this genius or madness, what Rafael's spitting right now?
Well, as the host of the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, I'm inclined to say that it's madness, but it is actually genius. To Rafael's point, a young man who in that greatest rivalry in college basketball can score 4 points and be far and away the best player on the court, which he did in the first matchup between these two schools last year. Because in addition to those 4 points, my man had 14 rebounds and 8 blocks in the North Carolina Duke rivalry. And so Derek Lively is just one of those guys who can absolutely change a game just sheerly by his presence. And not to mention everything that Rafael said, that he didn't really get to highlight all that much at Duke last year. He's another player similar to Dariq Whitehead at Duke, who came into the year injured and was kind of off and on the court a little bit. And so I don't think we really got to see the full true version of Derek Lively last year. And I think that's probably hurt him a little bit in some scout size, but they know what they're looking for. And if it's the right fit, it's the right fit.
I want to add a couple stats for you. Lively shot 90% from the floor in transition. He was in the top 97 percentile as a roll man. Again, it was a very small sample size because, there's not a lot of spacing in college basketball. I don't think he had the guards to get him the ball, but he shot 77% at the rim. Now, with his ability to roll and kind of suck in the defense, it leaves Dallas shooters open. And if you don't leave the shooters, Luka now has a legit vertical lob threat. They didn't use JaVale McGee a lot last year, but one of the best plays in basketball is when you have a guy that can stretch the floor vertically when he's surrounded by shooters. So I just think that this is like the perfect pick for Dallas. Don't mess it up.
Don't mess it up. That's the message for our Locked On Mavs host, Nick Angstead. So let's find out who the number 10 pick is. Here he is with the selection.
The Dallas Mavericks chose Anthony Black with the 10th pick, and after many many talks on trades to bring in different players, and 2 trades that fell through all the way that we had stipulations for, that we had ready in place to make the trade, to get a center, to bring in a wing. The trades just fell through because different players got picked higher than we thought they were going to. And so the Mavericks pick Anthony Black. We're very excited to bring in Anthony Black, though. He is a guard wing hybrid jumbo playmaker that can defend. He's a really good point of attack defender. The Mavericks need that desperately. They are worried about his shot, though. We're very worried about his shot and if it can translate to the NBA. Not a lot of rookies that can't shoot early on make big impacts, and the Mavericks need that desperately. So concerned about that, but we're very excited to bring in a guy that can defend like that, to come off the bench, to help Luka and hopefully Kyrie make it back to the playoffs. But it's disappointing the amount of trades that fell through for us. Wish we had some more time, but the Dallas Mavericks will take Anthony Black, and excited about the future.
Okay, Anthony Black, he talked a lot about his defense. This is a player who's a great feel for the game, high basketball IQ. Isaac, how would you grade this pick for Dallas?
Ooh, I'll give it a B, I think. Okay. Here's the funny thing. This time last year, we all would have said there's an Arkansas guard that's going to go in the lottery of the 23 draft. We just all thought it was going to be Nick Smith Jr. And here it is, Anthony Black, who maybe benefited from Nick Smith Jr.'s injury last year for the Hogs, but he took every advantage of that. Now, what I love about my man Anthony Black is he measured like 6'5 3/4" at the combine. With Anthony Black, I mean, you heard Nick say it. We're concerned about his shot, and for very good reason. It's just, it was not what needed to happen. But here's some parallel from Arkansas to what Dallas would be. Arkansas was a team that was fine in the SEC this year, but then they came in to the NCAA tournament and knocked off the #1 overall seed Kansas Jayhawks and that Grady Dick team. Part of that is Anthony Black's playmaking. He didn't, if I remember correctly, didn't score a single point in that game. But what he was great at was facilitating and setting up that really talented team, helping them overcome injuries to not only Nick Smith Jr., but Trayvon Brazile and others. He can step in and do that same thing for the Mavs. Maybe allow Kyrie and Luka to get off the ball a little bit, be a bigger guard. That'd be a devastating backcourt for other NBA franchises to have to deal with.
Rafael, A, B, C, D, where do you grade this one?
Oh man! I mean, the good thing is Anthony Black is from Dallas. He gets to stay home.
That's right.
I don't like it at all. Anthony Black shot 21% on guarded catch and shoot attempts. 21%. And I think with the Mavs, you have your franchise guy in Luka. You need someone that is going to complement him. And Mavs fans have been hard on Dwight Powell for years. I think this is like his 9th year in Dallas. It looks like Dwight's going to be the starting center again next year. I mean, I had a plan to get them some help.
Mm-hmm. Now,
Dwight
Rafael,
Powell, JaVale McGee, back again.
I want to know, what is it about this Dallas offense that they need a floor spacer so bad? If you can break it down for people, why is that so necessary to the way they play?
Well, Luka is a guy that definitely has the ball in his hands a lot, and he is someone that you need to have complementary pieces around him. Like, the hardest part in the NBA is having your superstar. Dallas has that. Now you just have the pieces around him. I think Anthony Black could help on the offensive end, but Dallas is a team that's in win now mode, even though they're in the lottery. So even if Anthony Black helps them on the defensive end, and if they make the playoffs next year, can you put him in a playoff game without it just kind of messing up the flow of your offense? That's why I think like a rim running big that's going to rebound. I think Lively has a much easier path to helping the team than a guard that has a major glaring weakness in his offensive game.
Because Lively's skill set translates to kind of plug and play. Like it's easier to fit into that flow that Rafael was just talking about. When you are a Lively versus when you are a Black, someone who has to be an initiator and do other things. If you can just be the recipient of all those beautiful lobs from both Luka and Kyrie, congratulations. And Derek Lively, by the way, is going to throw them down with ferocity.
Yeah, I mean, I look at Walker Kessler's success.
Yes.
Why can't Lively do the same thing? And that's why I'm so high on him. I think in a redraft, Walker Kessler is going in the top 10 for sure. I mean, he was first team all rookie. I think Lively I think he's more talented. Now, the question is he as tough as Walker Kessler? That's debatable. But I think if he can have a similar year, you're going to get top 10 value. He has the easiest job if he goes to Dallas.
Lively can be that tough. The question is, will he be consistently? I didn't see it last year in college.
Now, something you brought up that I wanted to expand on, Rafael, is this win now mentality in Dallas. And I read a lot of articles, heard some chatter about Dallas maybe should have traded away this first round pick for a win now veteran who could help Luka and Kyrie pursue a championship more immediately than maybe a rookie would. Where do you see this Black selection affecting the organization moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think if they're going to keep the pick, then it has to be someone that provides front court help in shooting, which they need the most. I mean, I think Christian Wood is going to be gone. So they are in win now mode. I think Anthony Black, at least for Dallas, is more so of a long-term solution. I mean, he can't help on the defensive end as far as the wing. But I don't know. I'm just kind of thrown off by it. But I will say they are in win now mode, and it's going to be tough for a rookie to come in and get those developmental minutes. I mean, Jaden Hardy had a really good year, but he had to fight to get those minutes, and he had to get injuries. And then as soon as guys got healthy, he was out of the lineup. So he got shuffled back and forth. I mean, obviously Black would probably have a little bit more leeway as a top 10 pick. But I just think that Dallas is trying to win now. And I don't know if this internal timeline is going to be enough to give Black the time to develop into an offensive threat.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me with Locked On Warriors. We've been talking about it all season in terms of getting developmental minutes for all of these young guys the Warriors are brought in while they're still trying to win currently with the aging core. I feel like there's a little bit of a similar feeling in Dallas in terms of this timeline with Luka. Now they're trying to, figure out the future with Kyrie. But still, I guess anything to add on that, Isaac, in terms of Dallas's future with and how Anthony Black might fit into that?
The real world Mavs, I think, would have made a different decision here. Just looking at everything we're talking about, everything Rafael has just said, I don't think that that version of the Mavs would have gone with Anthony Black. What he does for the mock draft version of them is allows the Mavs to get Kyrie off his feet some as needed. It could be some insurance for Luka, a guy who can make plays in a not exactly but somewhat similar way, and has the requisite height to do so at an NBA level. And so there is some of that. Maybe he is a guy that if you bring him in and he can learn under Kyrie pretty quickly in the offseason, that he could run the second unit or something with time as you get into the season. But again, for a win now team, I don't think this is the way to go.
Interesting. Okay, for more on Anthony Black, here is John Neighbors of Locked On Razorbacks.
Anthony Black is expected to be the number one Arkansas Razorback taken in the NBA draft this year. He's a very extremely gifted and unique athlete where he stands at 6'7", but plays the point guard position. He's able to have different plays and different strategies of getting to the rack while scoring, while also distributing the ball for many assists while playing extraordinary defense. Whoever ends up getting a player like Anthony Black is going to be getting a great teammate that Eric Musselman personally has talked about the greatness that he had and also the toughness that he had as he dealt with the majority of the Razorback basketball season with nagging injuries. Not only is he a player that'll be able to be an immediate impact once he gets into the NBA, but he's a player that is also going to grow with his jump shot. That's going to be the biggest key because, as we all know, you got to be able to shoot to play in the NBA and be successful in the NBA at the guard position. Can he continue to work on his jump shot? That's going to be the ultimate test.
All right, some great insight from our guy, John. But was anyone else distracted by his background, the clothing optional beyond this point sign? For those of you who are listening, there was a little sign over his shoulder that read that. I was just cracking up.
And it says something about beaches.
Arkansas?
Yeah, it says something about beaches. I'm like, Arkansas is landlocked.
I'm not distracted at it at all because I talk with John pretty regularly. He's a hilarious dude, a great guy, covers the hogs really well. Woo pig suey. You'll love to see it.
All right. Well, you love to see it. And apparently clothing optional at the beaches that are somewhere in landlocked Arkansas. There you have it. All right. Well, for more on this pick, let's go to Richard Stamen of our Locked On NBA Big Board.
Dallas Mavericks selecting Anthony Black at number 10 is an absolute steal. Anthony Black has been considered a top 6 to 9 prospect. So just by nature, the Mavs at 10 getting him is a big win. You look at the size at about 6'6", 6'7", with point guard abilities, defense, and room to grow as a shooter. Anthony Black checks every box that the Mavs are looking for in upside with this top 10 pick. This is everything they wanted to tank for. This is somebody that could be a very good value at number 10. So shout out to the Locked On Mavs guys for getting him. The only concerns I can see with Anthony Black are really that, you know, he needs to keep adding strength, be more aggressive as he adds strength. If he continues to stay on the more passive side, he's not completely passive, but, you know, he doesn't always use aggression and his body to his advantage. If he can do that while also adding a jumper, I think that's a lethal addition and could make moving off of Kyrie Irving even more easily adaptable.
Interesting. Richard, a little bit higher on Anthony Black than you guys were. All right, looking ahead to the next couple picks, 11 through 16, coming up in our next episode, who is the next best talent on the board for you both?
I would go with Bilal Koulibaly from France. It's a name that is skyrocketing up the draft as Victor Wembanyama's teammate. I think that he is going to be I think he's going to be in demand. And then Nick Smith, we talked about it. Isaac talked about it. Nick Smith was, by a lot of counts, the top college prospect in college basketball entering the season. Missed a lot of time with right knee management. I think it's kind of unfair that of course he didn't play well, but he was trying to fight through injuries. And Isaac may agree with this, but Nick Smith, if he chooses to shut it down in November, he probably goes higher in the draft. It's like he's being penalized for trying to fight through injuries and try to help his team win. What's your thoughts on that? I know, sorry, it's your show, Kylen, but I have to.
No, Rafael, you got it. That was perfect, man.
No, I'm right with you, Rafael. The person I thought about a lot this year with Nick Smith's decision was what Zion did. Remember, he blew out his shoe. That's another North Carolina Duke reference there. But Zion blew out his shoe, and it's like everyone said, hey, shut it down. No point in you coming back. He decided to come back. Now, obviously, it's a different story because he's the consensus no-brainer number 1 pick in that draft. But with Nick Smith, I think it has cost him potentially in the draft, but I think it has probably won him some things in the eyes of NBA front offices.
Yep, but you know the best example I can think of? Cole Anthony did the same thing.
That's right.
He got hurt, and then he could have easily shut it down. North Carolina was not good that year.
They were terrible.
And he chose to come back. And so I think that, like you said, he may have won some, he won some fans in the front office, but he still hurt his draft stock by trying to play.
Okay, now for the record, Rafael, this is not my show. This is our show, the collective group, and y'all have been crushing it. So this would be nothing without you, to be very, very clear.
I don't know. You got all those job titles. We fall under you.
Crushing it like a grape.
Yeah, I need y'all to step it up, add a couple more job titles. We'll throw them into episode 3. We can make something up. Dog walker, whatever you guys want. We'll try to get y'all to my level here.
Yeah, you got to step it up.
Got to step it up. All right, love it. That does it for episode 2 of the Locked On NBA Mock Draft Special, presented by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Now, tomorrow, picks 11 through, or not tomorrow, tonight, up in our next episode, picks 11 through 15 will be announced. Will there be more trade madness to come? We had our first Mills bomb in this second episode. Will more be to come in the third? You guys got any predictions in terms of trades? Any teams that you could see? I love putting you all on the spot.
It's so unpredictable. I didn't see Utah and Oklahoma City coming up with a deal, even though that was probably one of the easiest trades I've ever seen. So I don't know.
That was hysterical. All right. Well, don't forget, you can find this entire special on both audio and video at Locked On NBA and Locked On NBA Big Board podcast feeds. For Rafael Barlowe and Isaac Schade, I'm Kylen Mills. We'll see you for the rest of the picks coming up in our Locked On NBA Mock Draft Special, episode number 3, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day.